achieved with that historic increase in funding last biennium. Unfortunately, we kind of have to pivot into this biennium where funding has been flat, as you can see on the next slide. In Washoe County School District for the fiscal year 26 budget, our per pupil, our base per pupil amount went up $3 from $9,705 to $9,708. And then next fiscal year will go up only $73. So we're kind of hit by both flat funding and in some cases decreased enrollment. And that has put tremendous pressure on our budget for both this current fiscal year and next fiscal year as well. And so we're trying to hang on to as much as we can here by making reductions in our central services budgets. As you can see in this slide, we made more than $7 million in reductions to our central office budgets. Started off with a preliminary deficit this fiscal year of $9.7 million when we were putting together the budget back in May and June. And through a series of intense discussions and analysis with our board, we were able to reduce that deficit to $2.1 million in fiscal year 26, but we were left with a deficit, so we've had to draw from fund balance to cover that shortfall. Then going into fiscal year 27, we've actually started our budget process much earlier than normal given the size of our deficit. And again, there's a number of factors that contribute to this. The two largest, again, are enrollment decreases. We've seen, huge demographic shifts in Washoe over the last 20 years so that our birth rate continues to decline. And so we've seen that enrollment decrease, and I think you've seen information that indicates that's kind of a statewide phenomenon as well. But that combined with the flat funding left us with a preliminary deficit of $18.4 million. That's what we reported to our board in September for the upcoming fiscal year, the fiscal year that starts July 1 of 2026. We have made a series again of reductions to our central budget, already have started that work. A little bit more than $10 million we've hacked out of the central office budget to get down to a current projected deficit of $8.3 million. And we'll continue to do work, but as you can tell, that's a pretty high hurdle. We are once again attempting to avoid at all costs cuts at our school sites, but we may in fact have to make reductions to our operations function. And so there is going to be a noticeable impact likely at our schools, not in instruction and the number of teachers necessarily, but other service level reductions at schools when it comes to operations or transportation. So something we continue to work on. We don't have all the answers yet, but that'll be the work we do between now and May of next year.
Good afternoon, Doug Owen for the record. And just to continue that, the investments that we made over the last several years have led to a positive trend both in recruitment and in retention, which have helped out our organization reach those academic gains that Joe talked about. We launched a new staff handbook, which allowed us to align professional expectations. And continuing on to the next slide, you see the staff climate results as a result of that have improved dramatically. And then just to call out, the work stress going up is actually a reduction of work stress, just so you're not caught off guard by the graphic there. Improvement in that area where people don't feel as much stress at work. We've continued our momentum in the recruitment space, not only with the investment in salaries, but also in Assembly Bill 49, getting that provisional license for our new hires that we're trying to get. And we've reduced certified time to fill by over 300% through some efficiencies in our organization, allowing us to really hire over 275 teachers in the course of about 10 weeks over last summer. That's about an 8% of our certified staff, just for some perspective on that.
And so before answering any questions again, we were really pleased with the academic outcomes last year and the progress that we saw within Washoe County School District from kindergarten up through 12th grade. Again, we saw our collaborative schools grow at exceptional rates, really showing that when we provide schools the additional support and prioritize and align, good things can happen. We also saw all populations of students grow. Our EL model showed to be a very positive step in best serving our multilingual students. We had historic proficiency rate gains, and dual credit increased sizably for all of our students. And so all in all, we were really pleased with last year. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today to share this information with you and share how the investments that are being made in education are making a real difference for our students. And so with that, we would be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you so much for that presentation and for the wealth of information in the slides. You did a really wonderful job of going through that quickly, which we certainly appreciate, but we like to have data to look back at. And I just want to note, I think it's really encouraging that in a number of the populations, we are at above pre-pandemic levels. And then wanted to especially note how impressive it is with the concurrent enrollment, investing $416,000 to potentially save $4.3 million in tuition sounds like a very smart investment. And so, I know that's going to have an impact on those students. I do have some questions, but I'm going to go ahead and defer to other subcommittee members because normally we end up having the same questions. So we'll start here in Las Vegas, and we'll start with Senator Dondero-Loop.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the information. I appreciate how it was laid out as well. One of the things that I want to kind of address is that I am watching in all of our school districts on both ends of the state is dual enrollment, the dual credit piece. So I'm not sure I agree that it saves all students money. I've watched this happen within my own family and with some other students as well. They have this feeling that they are going to go to college and it's going to take them 2 years. And then they get there and they find out if they're going to be in the honors college. No, that's not the case. It's going to be 3 or 3.5. I also am aware of a couple students down here, for example, who took some dual enrollment and then were not admitted to University of Nevada, Reno up north as they thought they were going to be. And then there are the students who go out of state who these credits are not applicable possibly at their university that they have applied at. So I think that the only thing I think that we need to do is we need to be really forthright and honest about this. I'm not saying it doesn't work for any student, and I'm not saying it's not applicable, but I do think that it is not this wonder piece that it is being laid out to our students for. So with that, if you could give me a little more information about how it is helping. I get that it's helping our underrepresented students who may not have to take English 101 again, but also if they've taken, I don't know, their beginning biology classes and then they get to the university and they're a third-year biology student and they're not ready for that, they end up taking that other biology class anyway. So if you could talk to me a little bit about that and how that's going in Washoe County School District, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dondero-Loop. I very much appreciate the question and the comments relative to dual credit and concurrent credits as well. I think some of the items that you have addressed, I think that those can be an aspect of it. One of the things that we are really trying to do is create as many potential pathways that optimize students' attributes, strengths that they bring to allow them to choose careers or college opportunities. And so we do that with the CTE, with the internships, and then, on the dual credit side of things. We try to make sure that when we are working with students and families that we are very fair about credits going towards higher ed. I will say that over time, we have seen it really become stronger and stronger in terms of the universities taking these college credits forward, but sometimes it simply might be one class. It's not always I'm going to complete 16 or 32 credits so that I have this college status. Sometimes it's just an advanced opportunity, an accelerated academic pathway. But I think all of the comments are fair. And I think what we are always trying to do is make sure that we are refining and aligning as positively as we can with our higher ed institutions.
Thank you very much. And that's obviously all we can expect, because I think that it's really important that students understand, because like I said, they graduate with an associate's degree from the community college, they get out of high school with these degrees, they assume that they're going right into college and it's going to take them 2 years. And that's how kids think, right? And by the way, that's how some parents think. And then they get there and they realize that's not the case. And it may take them 3 to 4 years of more classes to graduate in whatever specific area that they are looking to work in. So I would just keep that in mind. I would definitely think that that's something that we need to address with our students and look into in the future. And I would say that about all school districts, not just Washoe County. So thank you very much.
Do we have other questions down here in Las Vegas? Okay, I don't see any at the moment. Let's go to Zoom next. I know we have a question from Assemblymember Monroe Moreno, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could go back to slide 49, and thank you all for being here today for your presentation, the staffing recruitment. If we could just do kind of a deeper dive, it shows that you hired 278 new teachers from June through August. Can you tell us, it says that you did some hiring events and partnerships, but did you recruit out of state, within state? How were you able to fill all of those seats? And did that make you 100% filled, or is there still some vacancies there?
Great question. Thank you for the question. Doug Owen for the record. So when we filled those 278, that's a combination of in-state, out-of-state, and even international hires that we made in partnership with some vendors, if you will, service providers, as well as different higher education institutions that we were able to go do career fairs, even some virtually that we were able to participate in. And it really started back in about March or April, where we started making those connections. And then during that hiring spree over the summer is where we actually made the hires that happened. Some of those required us to expedite things a little bit and just helping candidates navigate the system. So as they were approaching graduation, perhaps they went ahead and applied for a license, for a teaching license. Or perhaps they were doing an internship and we had them on a sub-license, have them go back through the system and actually pursue a full standard license at that time. So rather than waiting until a month before school starts, and then we're limited by the throughput and the bandwidth within the NDE licensing organization, which happens every summer. So we just tried to get ahead of it as much as we possibly could and communicate the pathway necessary for the candidates to take. And then we were able to push them through that system very quickly.
Follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Please go ahead.
And then for the milestones, do you think that when it looks at the staff climate, the results with the work stress being lower, the quality of being an educator or an education professional at Washoe County, when you're out recruiting, do you share that information with the candidates that you're hoping to hire? Is that helping in your recruitment, showing that those numbers for staff are improving in your district?
Thank you for the follow-up question. Most certainly, yes. So we share that in our recruitment, and whenever we hold a career fair, we talk about the quality of the career at the Washoe County School District. And when they get into that, they want to know what is it like. And so we talk about, we have gains, and similar to the academic gains that we talked about, that Superintendent Ernst talked about, it's great to have them, never satisfied. We want it to get better. And so as a candidate, we want to make you a part of that, and a part of that journey of making our school district better for all of our students. And many people that are pursuing education really latch onto that. They want a good, high-quality place to work with low stress. And it's not always low stress. You're still teaching school, but at the same time, you can help make it better. And they seem to appreciate that. And it's candid, but leads to them joining and working for us.
Thank you so much for the answers, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the questions.
You're very welcome. We'll stay on Zoom. Senator Cannizzaro, did you have any questions for the Washoe County School District?
I do not.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go up to Carson City then. I know Senator Titus has maybe a couple of questions, so we'll start with her.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of questions, and thank you all for being here today. And I appreciate the information that you gave us. I have my first question regarding the classroom size reduction. You mentioned in your presentation that there was in your 4th and 5th grade class size reduction from 33 to 30 students in your 1 and 2 star elementary schools. How many schools would that be? How many rooms and classes were actually affected by that?
I think it's a great question. I'd be a bit reluctant to say the exact number, but we will absolutely get that information back to you.
And thank you for that. And then
Yes.
Along the same line, if I might, Mr. Speaker, the footprint, I'm wondering how many kids did you actually lose in this last cycle? What's your number now? And how many kids did you lose?
So our enrollment numbers, again, and I would give you the exact figures. We would be glad to send that in writing. This year, our enrollment is just under 59,000 students. I believe it's at 58,780. It's somewhere right close to that. And I want to say, compared to the prior year, approximately 300 or so students less.
All right, thank you. And final question along the absentee rates. I'm very concerned that they actually went up in your high school kids. You did mention transportation, and I know some of the rural districts that I represent, they've had difficulty getting bus drivers, getting transportation, getting scheduling. Do you see any association with a lack of transportation in your chronic absenteeism?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator Titus. We have done some analysis in that area. We don't see the transportation in that specific instance impacting the chronic absenteeism. We feel good about the number of drivers, the service that we're providing. We moved to a hub model a few years back, which was a change of service in terms of the way that we had students, instead of all individual stops going into one location and then being bused to school from there. That model has stayed in place, but when we look at the transportation and it possibly negatively impacting student absenteeism, we don't see it. There's one area out in the north where our geographic region is some of our biggest, and we have some of our most buses. We operate anywhere from 20 to 25 buses at that high school. That one particular area we keep a pretty close eye on, but we were also, in this instance, just to kind of take it to a good news place, is what we were doing is we actually offered buses even beyond the normal drop-off time. So students go home at 2:30, but what we were finding is they weren't able to access the clubs and activities and even sports. And so we ended up offering a second drop-off at about 4 o'clock each day, so students could access these extracurricular pieces. So we're always trying to do analysis on transportation impact relative to chronic absenteeism. In high school, there is, to be very fair, a lot of work to do, and we've got some decent early signs, but there's a number of pieces that we see up in high school that warrant some consideration to help decrease chronic absenteeism in high school.
Right, just a comment, I do appreciate that you're looking at some innovative ways to get kids engaged and want them to come to school, and the 365 new clubs that you've added is at least trying to do something to solve it. So thank you all, and thank you, Chair, for the questions.
You're welcome, Senator. Are there additional questions up in Carson City? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Let me just ask a couple of hopefully quick questions. I did note on the presentation, you talked about the phone away policy, and I just wanted to ask what is the policy at the Washoe County School District in terms of if and when students can access telephones during classroom hours?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So in very large part, it is phone away. So we are learning today. And so that means when they come into class, they have options of putting it in a phone caddy, checking it in so that they don't have it on them, and being able to attend to instruction. I will say that we've got really good feedback. We instituted it as a pilot at the last year, about midway through the year, so that we could collect data to see how well it was being implemented. But in large part, students are expected to not have phones during instructional time. There are occasions where a teacher might need to have students access something online. It may not have laptops available, although that's the preferred method, and may ask students to pull out their devices to help with some academic experience. We really try to make sure that laptops or iPads are available and not necessarily using the phones during instruction. I will say it's a continual fine-tuning. I think that having a strong policy in place has benefited our students, but that it's always something that we are paying attention to. It does require continued enforcement from the teacher level to the students. Administratively, it has to be supported as well, but really with the firm idea that students are self-regulating as far as not accessing it, and making sure that we're continuing to stay in that space, because we've received a lot of great feedback in various surveys from teachers to families who were really appreciative of the phone away learn today. Students, they had a little different take on it, but we were pretty pleased with the overall amount of feedback in that area.
Thank you for that response. And that was going to be my next question, was just the feedback on that policy. And so I take it from your answer that students can access their devices in between classes. And so I guess the question I have there is just knowing human behavior. Do you have any thoughts on it? It seemed to me if you can't access the phone during the classroom, the first thing you're going to do when you walk out into the hallway is grab that phone, just like all of us do when we leave meetings or what have you. Have you seen that happen? And has there been any, I don't want to tip your hand here and I don't want to worry anybody, has there been any discussion about potentially making that a bell-to-bell, no use of phones, versus they can use them in between classroom time?
Thank you, Chair Yeager, for the question. So that is the minimum standard. We have many schools that do have bell-to-bell in place, where students are not allowed to take it out at any time during the day. So we tried to set a floor for what is expected at all schools, and also recognize that principal, along with working with their staff, their families, they can also institute an even stricter policy. So we wanted to make sure that we set the floor, and we have, and I'll tell you, a lot of our middle schools right now are going bell to bell without having any access to cell phones throughout the school day.
Thank you for that. That's great to hear. I do think, based on the research that I've seen, bell to bell is the most effective way to let kids be kids and have them learn. But obviously, I understand that every school has different needs. So, I give you kudos for putting in a minimum standard. And
In other words, if something really bad happens or a teacher does something really bad, the students won't be able to record it and document it. It'll be left up to the school to document it and then make parents aware of any instances or situations. So myself personally, they shouldn't be taking away these high school kids and these students' cell phones for the reasons I stated. That's my opinion.
good to hear certain schools are adding to that. The next question I had was just, we're living in pretty interesting times right now, particularly when it comes to the relationship between the states and the federal government and education. So my question was just if you had any information you could share about disruptions or impacts of what's happening at the federal level. Is that having an impact on the Washoe County School District? Is it not? Is it too early to tell? Just your thoughts on that dynamic.
Thank you again, Chair, for the question. I think that we have seen a fair amount of disruption based on various delays, based on various actions that have occurred. I'm grateful for our Chief Financial Officer, Mark Mathers, our leadership team, that anytime we get these interruptions during the summer, we were faced with the potential loss of 21st Century Learning Grant, which provides a lot of after-school programming for our students and care for the families. We were just a couple of weeks before school and working to find all possible ways to maintain that, knowing how important child care and before and after school care is for our hardworking families. So we have seen disruption, and those stopping and starting or those inconsistencies, it just puts additional strain on maximizing the investment. In each instance, we have worked to come up with alternative plans to support based on the timing of the disruption, but certainly it has an impact in different ways.
Thank you for that. I don't think I have further questions, but I did just want to have one last call for questions for the Washoe County School District. Does anybody else have a question? If so, just hit your microphone button and let me know. Okay, I'm not hearing additional questions. I want to thank you, Superintendent, and your team for being here on this Monday afternoon. Thank you for the hard work that you are all doing, and I'm sure we will be in touch soon.
Thank you.
And with that, subcommittee members will close agenda item number 5, which was the presentation from Washoe County School District. We will open agenda item number 6, which is a presentation from the Douglas County School District. And they're going to go over some of the same topics that we just heard from the Washoe County School District. So if we have representatives from Douglas County, would you please come forward? And members, I do believe we have a printed presentation that has some of the slides as well. And much like we did with Washoe County, we'll give Douglas County a chance to go through the presentation in its entirety, and then we'll have some questions, I am sure. So Superintendent, thank you for being here. Thank you for putting this presentation together, and please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Interim Finance Committee Subcommittee. I'm Frankie Alvarado, Superintendent of Douglas County School District. Joining me today is Sue Estes. She is our Director of Business Services. First off, I want to say great job by Washoe County School District putting together their presentation and all the information they shared with you today. As you know, Douglas County School District is a rural school district. Our presentation is going to look slightly different. We will do our best to answer all of your questions. If there is information that we don't have for you today, we will prepare that and send that in a follow-up report to you. So to get started today, Douglas County School District, our mission is to continually grow as an innovative educational community committed to learning for all. We will inspire, empower, prepare each learner to achieve his life aspirations. And so I want to also say that your investment in education has paid dividends for Douglas County School District. Later in our presentation, you will see that we made advancements in all measured metrics with exception to one, 11th grade science. And I can tell you, all the money that you've allocated to us, we put to good use, and we'll highlight that as well in our presentation. Okay, so looking at page number 1, student achievement. Once again, we made improvements in all academic programming with exception to 11th grade science. Most notably, every one of our schools in the star rating system increased their index scores. Some schools moved from 2 stars to 4 stars. Some moved from 2 to 3. But with that being said, I want to highlight that George Littell High School came in at 5 stars. George Littell High School also has a middle school. So that 5-star rating for George Littell also counts for the middle school students there. Our other 5-star rated school is Pinion Hills Elementary School. We made an advancement in our graduation rates by over 2%. The graduation rates will not be finalized by the state until December, and we plan on presenting that to the Board of Education in January. But preliminarily, we do see a growth at about 89% of our graduation rate, which is about a 3% improvement overall. Looking at our MAP assessment scores, I couldn't be more proud of our students, our teachers, and our families for their commitment to education and their partnership. Last year, our theme for the school district was connections, and we really focused on developing relationships. This is my 17th month at Douglas County School District, so last year I spent a lot of time listening and learning. I had a 100-day transition plan. School districts are complex organizations, and I really had to get a solid understanding of where we're at so we can implement the continuous improvement process. You have to know where you're at, where you're going, and how you're going to get there. As we came into the second half of the year, we noticed we were having ending fund balance issues with our budget. And so from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26, we did make a reduction in staff, approximately 47 positions in total. So I do want to stick to my script here and move forward with our academic achievement. So I'd like to move forward to our Title I program. In Douglas County School District, we designate 3 schools as Title I. C.C. Manili Elementary School, Jacks Valley Elementary School, and Powaloo Middle School. So although we did grow in every area that's measured in the star rating system, I have to tell you that our Title I program is not measuring at the same effect as our regular program. And so what you'll see in those Title I ratings is that our students that are identified and designated as Title I are underperforming. That is an area that we were reviewing for to ensure that we are compliant with federal regulations and that we have every component and that we're making sure to allocate our resources toward our Title I schools and our Title I students. That is the important work that we're starting this year and we'll focus on for years moving forward. I'm not going to go into every single metric that's on this page, so I'd like to move forward with our retention, recruitment, and vacancy rates. So for the certified side of the house, what you'll see for 24-25 is we have a retention rate of about 91%. We had 31 new hires from last school year, from the prior school year going into last school year, with 12 vacancies. When we discovered our ending fund balance issue, we also noticed that we had a lot of critical shortage teachers that were on our staff and that we weren't completely compliant with the regulation for maintaining critical shortage teachers. So we immediately rectified that. We made sure that each of those positions were posted and we were able to fill every single one of those critical shortage areas, which ultimately reflected in helping with a budget reduction process. On the classified side of the house, we have a retention rate of 84% with 56 new hires, and there were 25 vacancies. Okay, moving forward, as I stated previously, our presentation is slightly different as we really want to highlight the financial challenges that we're experiencing in Douglas County. So the next slide will show you our declining enrollment, which is a major factor for loss of revenue in Douglas County School District. So from you'll see the graphic from 2022 moving towards 2026, where you're going to see a major decline in student enrollment. This is troublesome for Douglas County School District. We have to staff our schools at our highest projected enrollment to ensure that we meet our class size ratio plan for the school district. For this school year, 25-26, we had to increase our class size ratios higher than normal and higher than previous years. Okay, next slide. You're going to see our general fund revenue. So although the state did make a historic investment in education, what you'll see from 2022 moving to 2026, we also experienced flat funding. Our declining enrollment really offsets the new revenue that's assigned to us from the state through the biennium. So you'll see that our revenue for the 2026 school year is almost identical to the revenue we had back in 2022, even though, due to inflation and rising cost, our expenditures are outpacing our revenue by about 10%. Okay, going to the next slide, instructional supports from fiscal year 22 to 26. The additional money that Douglas County School District was allocated, we've spent that money on staff that can provide direct service to kids. And so you'll notice from fiscal year 24 to now that we've maintained that staff. And now, given our budget uncertainty and the possibility of being placed in a severe financial emergency by the Department of Taxation, we are in a position where we are going to have to consider some major cuts. And these are cuts that no other district is currently facing. I think we're going to be one of the first districts that has to consider possibly consolidating schools, reducing staff at a greater level than most other districts. We're anticipating an ending fund balance for fiscal year 26 to be right around negative 5.2 million. And also we're anticipating a negative ending fund balance from fiscal year 25 to be right around negative 1.2 million. So we have been working with Nevada Department of Education, the Department of Taxation, and really collaborating with them to ensure that they are kept up to date with the information, and that we're also going to be scheduling special board meetings with our Board of Trustees to bring all of these different budget reduction ideas so that way we can be in a fiscally sound position moving forward. Okay, next page highlights our financial challenges. So in the red is our expenditures. The green is our revenue. Once again, as you can see, as our revenue has been fairly flat, we actually took a decrease in revenue from 2022 to 23, about $4 million. But we're now back up in 2026. We're back where we were back in 2022. And if you look at that red line going up over to the right, those are our expenditures. And once again, our expenditures are outpacing our revenue by over 10%. Okay, next slide highlights our ending fund balance issues from fiscal year 22. What you'll notice is in 22 and 23, we were fairly stable on our ending fund balance. But once we hit fiscal year 24, we took a major hit. And then continue to take a major hit into fiscal year 25, where you'll see that negative ending fund balance, and then for fiscal year 26, where we anticipate having over a negative 5 million balance. Okay, the next slide will highlight the financial challenges. So we faced declining enrollment. We have expenditures that encroach into our general fund. We began right-sizing our staffing to enrollment last school year. We wish this process would have taken place back in the 2022 school year, but it wasn't. So we noticed it was an issue, and once again, we did reduce close to 47 positions. Some of those were vacant budgeted positions. This also highlights our collaborative work with NDE and Department of Taxation and the possibility of us being placed in a severe financial emergency. Okay, next slide goes into the factors for financial challenges. And so we consistently on an annual basis have to transfer from our general fund into other funds, right around 6.6 million, which is over 10% of our budget. And we have obligations for our self-insurance program, inclusive education, and transportation. Those are all rising costs. For collective bargaining, 1% for Douglas County School District equals about $500,000 in money. In fiscal year 2024, through the collective bargaining process, employees were provided with 11% increase. That's about $5.5 million in money. In fiscal year 2025, employees received a 4% increase. That's about $2 million in money for the district. I highlight here that right sizing should have taken place back in fiscal year 22. And then declining enrollment. If you look at our declining enrollment figures, which is a separate attachment to this presentation, the district has lost revenue close to $5 million in 3 fiscal years. We came just short of the declining enrollment hold harmless provision, which is set at 5%. Douglas County School District was at 4.75%. That would have brought in over $2 million of revenue, which would have helped us in this situation currently. Recently, the Nevada Department of Ed notified us that we would not receive about $230,000 of funding due to declining enrollment for Q1. If you look at that figure over the course of a year, that's close to $1 million if we're going to be losing that amount of funding each quarter. So this presentation truly highlights our financial issues and challenges. I did not go too far into our achievement, but I'm willing to answer any questions that you have today.
Thank you for the presentation and for preparing those slides for us. I'll just maybe start with the most obvious question, which is what is driving the declining enrollment in the Douglas County School District?
So in Douglas County School District, we have over 700 registered homeschool students. Recently, we held a homeschool town hall in order to engage our homeschool community, develop a partnership, develop relationships, and to support the kids in Douglas County School District. What we learned in that process, we had over close to 40 families attend that meeting. What we learned is that families were making this decisions because religious beliefs. They wanted to have their students either at an institution of religious faith or to provide their own religious education at home, or there may have been a bad experience for their child in the school district. The other factors are transportation costs. So with transportation, I would say our budget has increased about 30%. Our self-insurance program, we typically put in about $1 million from our general fund into the self-insurance program to maintain that. Recently, we did increase our rates for employees, which will help a little bit, but it's still not going to pull us out of this situation. You know, anticipating a negative $5.2 million ending fund balance, and then also facing loss of revenue next school year with declining enrollment, you know, the district is going to be looking at capturing about $7.5 million to put us in a sound position. That's over 10% of our general fund. And Sue, if you'd like to add other factors from inclusive ed. Yeah.
Sue Estes, Director of Business Services for the record. We have had some exorbitant special ed costs that have created a transfer that is
it is a big transfer from our general fund to our special ed. We've worked with the Department of Ed, and they have recommended that we reach out to, and we did this last year. We submitted case files that were unusual, and we were approved for one of those, and I think that we will probably be able to go forward and capture some additional funds for that based upon the application itself. I don't think Cheryl was familiar with how to actually apply that application, but they did approve one that saved us about 200,000, but we still ended up with 400,000 in the hole with special ed. We just could not keep up with the costs. And we've had a lot of IEPs, and I'm sure that is everywhere, but those IEPs have created a one-to-one aid to a teacher, an aid to a student, excuse me. And so it has created some additional expenditures in our special ed that have been, and then we've had some challenges with transportation with special ed that have cost us quite a bit of money. So the special ed program is a program that is so dictated by statute, and so there are so many things that they feel like they need to incorporate. But Frankie has done a fabulous job of trying to, draw some of that back in ways in which he is, I think it's unfamiliar. It's an unfamiliar territory because we have a new inclusive education director. Not entirely sure how the whole program works, and I think that it has been tough. So we've had to transfer quite a few extra funds to go into the special ed program from the general fund as well.
Yeah, to add to that, even though we're declining enrollment, we're increasing enrollment with students identified with a disability. So that's also, driving expenditures for us.
Okay, thank you for those responses. I'm sure we have some additional questions. At this time, I'm going to actually start up in Carson City. Are there questions up in Carson City for the Douglas County School District?
Thank you, Chair. Senator Titus here. Again, thank you both for being here. A couple questions actually, specifically regarding the inclusive population of students. We met last month over this issue and this possibility of the $5 million in the hole, and looking at ways or are you leaving any money on the table that you could be getting back to help cover this cost? So I have a couple questions regarding that. First, I suggested to you that you reach out to the Medicaid department to do some of the reimbursable things that the state already has a program for on some of these students. And has that made any progress?
Yeah, so our inclusive ed leaders have attended multiple trainings on Medicaid billing. That is something that we will pursue this school year at some point. We are also networking with local districts that already have Medicaid in place in their districts and starting that collaborative process, so that way we can, you can't just implement something without knowing the ins and outs of it, right? So it's really important for our leaders in that department to really understand the nuances before jumping in and implementing it. But we do plan on doing that here in the spring semester.
Thank you for that. And at the time of the meeting, there was some hope that perhaps the state education department would be able to maybe help some of these smaller districts apply for some of these Medicaids. As you had mentioned, you'd have to hire more people than it would be worth to bill practically to get this done. Has that made any progress?
Yeah, we spoke to interim superintendent Dr. Steve Canavero. I know that is on their radar. I don't believe there's been a lot of progress made in that area. We do anticipate communication from the Nevada Department of Ed once that is ready to go.
And last question, if I might, Mr. Chair, just the getting the numbers of declining student enrollment, it across our state has happened, but I see it particularly in Douglas County. And part of the thing, and you didn't mention this, and maybe it's just a cost of living in Douglas County for your teachers and for families with young kids to move to Douglas County. It's a very expensive county to live in. And I'm wondering if overall that's perhaps the actual population has changed, shifted in Douglas County, and young families are moving out. Your teachers can't afford there, and the people that are moving there are the retirees or some other folks, and they don't have little kids. And do you see the demographics changing?
Great question. So the retirement population in Douglas County has exceeded 80%. We are a retirement destination for many Californians, and it makes it difficult for young families because you're right, the cost of a home in Douglas County is higher than most other counties in northern Nevada.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both of what you're trying to do and what you're continuing to do, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the questions.
You're very welcome, Senator. Are there additional questions up in Carson City? Okay, let's go to Zoom. Do either of our Zoom participants have questions for Douglas County? Okay, I don't hear any, so we'll come back down here to Las Vegas. Senator Nandero-Luke.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. I know that you're facing difficult times. Could you talk to me just a little bit about, you just said it, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about your, with what the State Department is telling you and how that's working out. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Your conversation with Dr. Canavero.
Yes, so Dr. Canavero has shifted over to the Educational Service Center and beginning the work of standing up the board for that service center. And in the conversation with him and Deputy Superintendent Peterson, you know, they understand that rural districts face issues with getting the work done. You know, we truly, in rural districts, try to allocate all of our resources to direct service to kids, which sometimes limits our ability to get work done at the central service center, at the district office. And so in the conversation with Dr. Canavero, he mentioned that the Department of Ed will consider maybe putting together 1 or 2 employees to provide supports to rural school districts for Medicaid billing. I don't have a time frame for that, but I am anticipating a follow-up.
I appreciate that a lot. I just know that when we vote for K-12 funding, we support that, that department, and that's why that K-12 funding is so important for us to supply to the state of Nevada. Also, could you tell us a little bit more about when you had your homeschool town hall? I know you got feedback from the families as to why they didn't choose a public school setting for their children, but did you make any headway? Did you have any parents just not understand or not appreciate what happens in a public school setting, that we do value each child as a public school system?
In that town hall, we really wanted to highlight how homeschool families can partner with school districts and vice versa. And through that, we are making progress. And in the near future, we will post a webpage on our district website to highlight important curriculum resources for parents. Parents were frustrated on the cost of curriculum, especially when they chose to homeschool a student, and they don't truly understand the funding mechanism within the state of Nevada. They think that the local taxes still go directly to the school district, where with the PCFP that has changed. We still receive funding from those taxes, but they are there has been a shift from local funding to state funding. And so we will try to partner with them. We are increasing our partial enrollments. We understand that we get partial funding for partial enrollments. And so we have had an increase of students that are homeschooled that are choosing to come and either participate on a sport that's not an enrollment, or that want to either enroll in an arts elective, a CTE elective, or a physical education elective. And we anticipate that will continue to grow over time.
Great, thank you so much. I know that the job you have is very difficult, and I'm sorry that you're experiencing these issues, but we are here to support you, and thank you very much.
Do we have other questions in Las Vegas for the Douglas County School District? Okay, I don't see any. So one last call for questions before we let our presenters go. Okay, hearing none, I want to thank you for presenting to us and for bringing some of these challenges to light. Certainly we want to partner with you to make sure you have everything you need in Douglas County, but please keep us updated on how things are going. And thank you for being here today and for your presentation.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will close agenda item number 6. That was a presentation from Douglas County. And we will now open agenda item number 7, which is a presentation from the Clark County School District regarding the same 4 general topics that have been covered by our 2 previous school districts. And we welcome to the table Superintendent Ebert, as well as members of her staff. Members, you should have this presentation if you are in person in your packet. If you are online, it should be uploaded onto Nellis. Members of the public can find it there as well. Thank you for being here today, the day before a holiday, but we appreciate you putting this presentation together and your time. And when you have a chance, you can fire up the presentation. We'll let you go through that, and then we'll have some questions.
Good afternoon, Chair Yeager, Vice Chair Canizaro, members of the subcommittee. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert. I am the superintendent of the Clark County School District. With me today, I have Dr. Jesse Welsh, Deputy Superintendent, and our Chief Financial Officer, Justin Dayhoff. I want to continue our appreciation along with my colleagues in regard to the funding that was made available during the 2023 legislative session. It has made an impact. We will share that with you, but thank you very much for continuing to focus on our children. And then also too, for this school year, I am thankful to our unions, our bargaining unions, for their collective effort for our 26-27 contracts. We have our support staff, our teachers, and our administrators union contracts all finalized, and I know that happened rapidly because of what happened during the 2025 legislative session and your work on that. So thank you there as well. So our presentation is going to focus on the areas that you asked us to. First, we're going to start with the utilization of the funds, a little bit in the weeds of specifically how the funds translated into classroom support. Then going into the collective bargaining agreements, Dr. Welsh is going to cover the student outcomes and our graduation rates, which is why we all come to work every single day. Chief Financial Officer Dayhoff will deal with our financial related challenges and recommendations. And then we also have our recruitment data in here as well. So specifically for English language arts, doubling down on what has transpired over the last few years in the Clark County School District. Number 1, making sure that all classrooms had high quality tier 1 instructional materials. So no matter where you are in the Clark County School District, and we know our students are very transient as well as our teachers, that they all have the same materials in our core areas. And then on top of that, making sure that the science of reading is implemented in all of our classrooms. I'm very thankful for the work that our colleagues, both our region superintendents and our chief strategy, and our associate superintendents who lead this body of work to make sure it's consistent, that the coaching is consistent across the school district, and that it's also differentiated for all of our teachers. Next, we have our mathematics. Here too, we know that in the past and currently, our mathematics achievement is actually lower than our literacy achievement. And so doubling down in this area, making sure that our teachers have the materials. But it's not only our teachers. This last week, we worked with our school board to talk specifically about central office and making sure that the resources and the intellectual capital around central office is tight. Because if central office is not tight, then how can you expect the schools to be able to achieve and do their work as well? So holding up the mirror to ourselves, looking at the outcomes, working with our educators in professional learning, their pedagogy, whether you're an ELL student, a special education student, or a student that is at risk. And we're thankful that all of those funds are differentiated. Our college and career readiness, colleagues in Washoe County School District shared great success, and we have had wonderful success as well. Specifically, first and foremost, though, with our PSAT data, working to make sure that our students are on track for the opportunity of college coursework. We look at that data, making sure that they have the proper coursework moving forward. Our career and technical education schools, as you know, not only the schools that are designated as career and technical education schools, but within our comprehensive schools as well, making sure that 100% of our students have access there. The dual credit components that have been spoken to, we've actually increased our partnership with UNLV as well as the College of Southern Nevada to make sure that there are pathways available for all of our students. Science is another area. We follow the next generation science standards. That was a shift over the last few years. So there too, making sure that our teachers are prepared, that our parents understand what is transpiring within our classroom, and that it's aligned with the assessments that our students participate in. With our English language learners, we've recently adopted high quality grade level instructional materials for Tier 1 instruction, which includes the differentiation within every single classroom, the scaffolding, the targeted supports to help our students build both their academic content knowledge as well as their language at the same time. The professional learning communities with WIDA Access. We've had national experts come in to our school district, building up the proficiency again with our educators to make sure that our students succeed. We don't have the data in this presentation, but I do want to also double down what Washoe had presented. Our English language learners too, the ones that have been identified, they actually outperform non-English language students at the end of the day on assessments. And so that is really exciting to track. We know that when students are provided the supports that they need, they can achieve as well. Our chronic absenteeism data is here on this slide. We continue to work in this area. At the beginning of this school year, I believe some of your colleagues as well joined us. We went knocking door to door, our bright spots, and finding out where our students were. If they had moved to, I actually knocked on a door, one of our students had moved to Nye County. They hadn't contacted the Clark County School District yet, and so we were able to then transfer all the records locally, or if they moved out of state. So tracking every single student to success and making sure that they attend our schools and are here every single day. To round all of this out, the funding that has been provided, we have data that shows our decreased dropout rates, our student outcomes, our climate safety, as well as teacher retention. All proud to say right now, as we sit here before you, the Clark County School District has the fewest vacancies that we've had in over a decade. Less than 300 teacher vacancies within the school district. We have 44,000 employees, so less than 300 teacher vacancies, less than 70 support staff vacancies. All the other positions are filled with licensed educators. And so with that, I will turn the time over to Dr. Jessie Walsh to share how what we've been doing translates to student outcomes.
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert. So as you can see on the slide here, we are continuing to make some positive progress in terms of our student achievement. Specifically, our English language arts proficiency rates have increased across all grade bands compared to the prior year. And while we acknowledge that we still certainly have work to do in terms of proficiency, we have been making some meaningful progress based on the work of all of our educators in the district. Similarly, with mathematics, as you can see there on the slide, we are also seeing positive movement with mathematics for this past year, again, across all grade bands compared to last year. And again, while we know we still have work to do, middle school math is one of our core four. That's one of our big focuses for this upcoming year. We are glad to see some of the results that we are seeing moving in the right direction here with some of the supports that we've been able to put in place. And then when you look at some of our data across the Nevada School Performance Framework specifically, Very happy to report that we had significant improvements this year in terms of our star ratings and our index scores. We had 136 schools this year that made improvements on their overall star ratings on the NSPF. There were 50 schools that increased their index scores by more than 20 points. And again, that's on a 100-point scale. So we're definitely seeing broad year-over-year improvements in a variety of measures. And again, with the NSPF, we're talking about not just a proficiency in English language arts and math, but also growth with our graduation rates, our advanced coursework, credit sufficiency, and attendance. And then what you can see in terms of what that count looks like at each star rating, you can see the movement here as we have more schools shifting to that 3, 4, and 5-star status, and more schools moving out of 1 star up to higher levels. We had 48 schools that earned 5 stars on the NSPF this year, which is an increase from 28 the previous year. And 54 schools earned 4 stars and 73 attained 3 stars. And again, we attribute a lot of this work to that rolling out of our Tier 1 instructional materials, both in mathematics in 2021, for science in 2022, and then ELA in 2023. And we continue to refine our implementation of all of those as we go, as well as Superintendent Ebert had alluded to, our increased teacher retention and hiring, which led to our lowest number of classroom vacancies in a decade. And so with that, I will turn it over to our CFO, Justin Dayhoff, who will share some more information specifically on where we are in terms of the utilization of some of that funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee, Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer for the record. There are, as our colleagues in Douglas and Washoe County pointed out, fewer additional funds in the upcoming biennium when compared to the last legislative session, in part because of the difference in that PCFP base increase then and now. Nonetheless, with those new dollars, we can continue to strategically invest, mostly taking the form of our investments in people who deliver those programs and services. Note, please, that coming into 23 and 24, from the last biennium, that was an increase of more than $490 million just in the per pupil base for CCSD. For this legislative session, Senate Bill 500 in particular has already come, as Superintendent Ebert mentioned, into immediate service of CCSD children and families by providing important stability for our employees. I want to emphasize that I appreciate that the biennial nature of funding allows for multi-year planning, which is critical given CCSD's scale and complexity. Staff, facilities, transportation, technology, special education, and other high-need staffing. It underscores the importance of aligning our budget with our funding framework. And as I said, that came to fruition in the school year with our ability to move quickly with our bargaining partners and to provide much-needed increases. It is also true that these increases utilize the one-time appropriation from Senate Bill 500. Employee compensation increases are just that, total compensation increases, and not necessarily increases that ultimately reside wholly or in part in take-home. So as we continue to confront the whole of our employee compensation, we continue to appreciate the legislature's support, and we urge that continued support as cost pressures continue in the future. To that end, as we discuss anticipated financial related challenges and recommendations, we are and remain concerned about the core driver of our revenue, which is enrollment, as well as our ability to better plan our important targeted at-risk resources, which require an ability to reasonably project that eligible population year over year. Expiring ESSER funds, the outcome of which we observed in our fall budget cycle, and sustainability of resources continue to present additional challenges with the need to focus on increasing inflation, pension contribution costs, and maintaining our facilities. As I noted earlier, the majority of our operating expenditures as a school district are human capital, people costs. And we continue to know that those teachers and professionals continue to drive our student success. So hiring matters, as you can see on the screen here. These are the data as of October 16th, 2025. CCSD had hired nearly 50% of the total hiring for licensed personnel that was completed over the previous year, 24-25. At that same time, 1,395 licensed professionals have been hired. We had hired 873 support professionals, and these increases are largely due to the salary increases for teachers, which improved hiring practices within the system, as well as other incentives like the hard-to-fill resources from Senate Bill 231. The increase in hiring is greatly reflected in the current vacancies, as Superintendent Ebert already mentioned. Our employee retention also continues to be an area of focus for CCSD. Our retention rate for licensed professionals was 92.45%, which is a decline of 1.5% from the 23-24 retention rate of 94%. And the retention rate for support professionals in the 24-25 school year is 91.13%, which is a 0.87% decrease, although largely holding steady. Continue to make concerted effort to recruit teachers across the United States, also to fill our vacant special education positions. As of October, we'd scheduled visits with approximately 24 colleges and universities with confirmed special education teacher preparation pathways.
So in closing, we rounded out here this afternoon. For the record, Joan Ebert, Superintendent of the Clark County School District. In closing and rounding out this afternoon, you can see that the investment that has been made has had positive outcomes for our students here in the Clark County School District. Again, having a stable workforce is one. When teachers know, or excuse me, when our students know their teachers, they know they're coming to school, they build those relationships year over year. They're not wondering if it's a long-term substitute in their classroom. Our retention rate, our pre-kindergarten, we are really excited that we are able to use braided funds to expand our pre-kindergarten seats by 500, and then our proficiency rates, as well as college and workforce readiness, which Dr. Welsh had reported on. So at this time, Mr. Chair, we stand ready to answer any questions that you and the committee may have.
Thank you for the presentation, and we will start with questions down here in Las Vegas. Senator Dondero, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging me. First of all, I would like to thank you and your team. Superintendent, I think that it goes without saying, but I think it's important to say to you, thank you for building a team that has confidence and competence and integrity, because I think that's the reason that we have people who want to now work for the Clark County School District. So thank you for that. I would ask you the same question that I asked Washoe. Could you give me a little more information about how the dual credit program is working? Maybe delve into that just a little bit. It's a little bit of a question for me in my mind after watching some students that I know go through it. And so if you could give me some information, and that might be Dr. Welsh who does that. So I don't know if it's you or him.
He's got his green light. He wants to go.
There we go. Happy to jump in.
Thank you, Dr. Welsh.
So we continue to have partnerships with a number of NC institutions from across the state that are partnering with all of our high schools in terms of dual credit. We continue to increase our dual credit offerings and have expanded those and continue to see growth year over year in that. In particular, we've seen a lot of inroads with UNR offering dual credit at a number of our high schools, as well as Nevada State University. And then we've continued to work consistently with CSN as well as UNLV. So we're definitely seeing that continue. Some of the biggest challenges that we tend to see is just making sure that we can find teachers that meet the requirements to be able to teach those dual credit classes. We've been working very closely with those colleges and universities to help work on that, and we've been seeing some traction in terms of colleges being able to look at teachers that have other experiences, so they may not necessarily have that master's degree that is typically the highest standard that one would have for teaching those classes, but being able to use previous experience that those teachers may have in teaching post-secondary coursework to allow them to then be certified to teach those classes. And that's been a significant help to us as well.
I would add, Senator Donzaro-Loop, specifically to your question, as far as are we clear with the opportunity that students have to take those courses, and then what happens with higher education. And so those pieces of what you are highlighting today, I think are very important, and know they're very important, that we clearly articulate that if a student is participating in those dual credit courses, do they truly translate, as you noted, to UNLV? If you're going into the honors college, are you really going to have 2 years? So I think getting tight and clear around those opportunities. I wouldn't want to decrease the opportunities for any of our students, because when they're ready, we want to make sure that they have access to the dual credit courses, but I think we do need to be clear of, depending on your pathway, if you're going directly into the workforce, making sure that there's a certification with that CTE course that they're getting dual credit for. That is critical, that can translate directly into the workforce. But if they're taking that same dual credit course and thinking that it's also going to apply to a shorter time period for a 4-year degree in engineering, that doesn't happen. So definitely making sure that as we continue to expand access for all of our students, that we're clear of how that is going to translate into their future with their choices.
Thank you. And what does that, and you don't have to give me an exact piece, but how does that translate into funding? How does that get paid for? How do we do that with institutions?
Senator Dundee alludes to that question. We have, through the memorandums of understanding that we have with the colleges, and of course, NSHE has now consolidated their rates so they're consistent across the different institutions. A rate for those students who are participating in Jumpstart courses in terms of the cost per credit, which is significantly lower. So I think, as I believe I heard earlier even today, it's one of the best deals you can get out there, where students are able to get those credits at a much lower rate than they typically would if they were going direct to those institutions. And we continue to work with those NSHE institutions and with the NSHE entity itself to try to keep those costs low for our students and for us as the district, as we pay for some of those courses as well.
Thank you. And it's only a deal if you get the deal. I know a lot of students that haven't gotten the deal, and that's the problem. So thank you very much for that. And then the last question that I have is with your starred schools that you, and I was trying to go back to that page where you mentioned the schools on the Nevada School Performance Framework Progress and Results, those that increased by 3 stars and 2 stars, were those the only schools, or just those were the ones you highlighted?
Yes, those are just the ones we highlighted. Again, we had 136 schools that had movement there, just too many to list on the slide.
Okay, that's even a better reason not to list them all. So thank you very much, and thank you, and it's a pleasure. And once again, I think I haven't told you enough, but welcome to Nevada. We're glad you're here in Clark County School District.
I'll go ahead and just ask a few before we move on, and some of these will be similar, but I did want to ask about what the phone policy is at the Clark County School District as well.
Yeah, Jesse Welsh for the record, happy to answer that. So we have continued with the policy that has been in place since the previous school year, which is that students are required to place those phones at our secondary schools in particular. That's where the focus has been. We have signal blocking pouches available at all schools. Schools have the option to use those, as well as some of the things that you heard from some of our partner districts where they might have a little box or a cubby. I can share with you in my walks going around the schools, that policy has been implemented with fidelity. I'm pleased to see that. And that has, I think, led to a lot less distraction happening in our schools, which means there's more learning going on.
Yeah, and if there are any parents that are actually supporting that you're actually sending your high school kids and your public school kids to school, and you know that they're locking up their cell phones, not giving them a way to communicate with the outside world, then you're part of the problem. I don't agree with it. They should not be doing this with these kids' cell phones. Seriously, what happens when a teacher does something that the teacher shouldn't be doing, or something happens at the school that shouldn't be happening, and the students want to document it to tell their parents? They're not allowed to? Yeah, any parent that supports them locking up these kids' cell phones in the public schools, you're part of the problem. You're the reason why they are eroding away at our personal freedoms and our rights in this country. And you're probably one of those people that's okay with them surrounding our public schools with really high fencing, making them look more like prisons. Come on.
Great. And is that policy, is it bell to bell, or is it just during instructional times? Is it up to the individual school? How does that work?
Yeah, so it does apply during any instructional time. Students are able to use those during non-instructional time. So for example, at lunchtime. And of course, we do have in our policy 5136 exceptions for emergencies and those sorts of situations as outlined in the recent legislation.
Great, thank you. And then a similar question to what I asked Washoe County, and that would just be the interaction with the federal government, some of the delays in getting funding. If you could talk a little bit about those challenges and if you've been able to overcome them. And hopefully we're at a place where maybe we'll get a little bit more certainty from the federal government, but I don't think so because it just seems like we're in that moment of time. So if you could just share a little bit about your thoughts and how you're trying to get out of that.
Chair Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer for the record. Fortunately, so far, we've seen little disruption on our day-to-day operations due to the federal shutdown, in part because the mechanism that the state has to continue to draw down on those already approved federal appropriations has remained open throughout the pandemic. And so any federal resources, particularly, for example, when we talk about Title I, which is Title I of the Federal Elementary and Secondary Students Act, those primary funding mechanisms have continued to flow. We've received reimbursement for those throughout the shutdown. That is not the case for discretionary programs, but again, the predominance of our funding has continued. And with regard to food service, we also both retain enough to make it through at least the end of this fiscal year before having concern on food service operations specifically. I say all of that to note, though, that is not for nothing the impact that could be happening to and with our families as they attend our schools. But as far as our operations go, day to day, we've been able to continue to operate.
The next question I had was, I think it was referenced somewhat in the presentation, and that is Assembly Bill 398 that had the additional compensation for the hard-to-fill positions. Could you just give a quick update on where that stands right now? I know I've personally missed some of the IFC meetings, but has that money is it out there being deployed now? Has it been bargained for? And just what impact, if any, you can say that that's had at this moment in time?
Chair, thank you for the question. That money has been budgeted for at this time. We've also reached agreements with our partners as to the allocation of those resources. We submitted all required forms to the Nevada Department of Education by the request deadline earlier this fall. We are currently awaiting the December IFC meeting, at which point we anticipate NDE making the full request for its appropriation, upon which and upon our actual award issuance, our plan is to begin issuing payments again back retro to July 1st.
Great. And then before I move on to others for question, I did want to just echo what Senator Dondero Loop said. I think it's nice to have new leadership at the Clark County School District and a real team model. And so the question really probably is for you, Superintendent Ebert. I know you've had the opportunity since taking this job to travel to a lot of the schools, to talk to a lot of staff and students. I have not done as much as you have, but I have sensed an increase in morale and a sense of optimism and hope. And I guess I just wanted you to confirm that that's what you're seeing and hearing on the ground. Obviously, there are always going to be challenges, but it seems like the outlook is more optimistic than it's been in a very long time in the Clark County School District. And so could you talk a little bit about your experience interfacing with staff and students in regards to that question?
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert, for the record, and I appreciate your comments as well as Senator Dondero Loop. It has been wonderful to be out in classrooms in this position and with this team that we've assembled. They feel that they are heard, which is first and foremost that shift. They also know at the same time they're empowered to do their job, what we hired them to do. And at the end of the day, knowing that you're a leader in a school, and when I say leader, I mean everyone from, our most important people, keeping the buildings clean, healthy, safe, to our teachers, to our students, all of those pieces are turning around. And I'll give you the Thursday example when all of the superintendents were here visiting. We had our NAS meeting at our family center, and I was walking through, and one of our janitors came up to me and he's like, "No, so nice to meet you." And I'm like, "Nice to meet you too." So we had a conversation and he said, "I listened to the podcast." I'm like, "Great." He goes, "Destination District." And it's really about getting just information out there of the great things that are happening. Our schools are, and our teachers are recognized nationally for the work that they do. And so continuing to lift up the positive pieces of the hard work that everyone does each and every day. And that makes my job a lot easier when they know they're doing good work and that they're empowered to do the work that they do. And I'll just serve one other quick story. I was at Mojave High School the other day and was speaking with a student who I went out there because a student in his classroom had an epileptic episode. And the teacher, had to make sure that everyone's safe. This student stepped right in, helped the teacher, kept everyone else, calm, called the office, all of those things. So I went out to the school to thank him for what he did for the other student. And he was just sharing with me, Mikey, make it happen. He too himself is going to create safe spaces for people that are 16 to 20 years old, that they can have a concert. He said, we don't want to call it a rap or anything like that. We are going to have a concert and have fun. So we have students that want to, also lift up the entire community, which I just enjoy. I've been remiss in my social media, but actually I feel now growing up Catholic, not guilty. But Mikey, make it happen. You need to see him at Mojave High School as well.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I know we have some additional questions, so we'll go to Zoom next. Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Superintendent Ebert and your great team for being here today. My questions for you are similar to my questions that I had for Washoe County, and it goes back to slide number 17, the recruitment, retention, and vacancies. It is extremely impressive that you're able to hire over almost 1,400 new licensed professionals and almost 900 support staff. But there are still a few vacancies for licensed professionals and support staff. Is the recruitment ongoing? Can you share with us the creative ways you're trying to recruit? Or do you have long-term subs in those open positions, or most of those long-term subs hired to be education professionals in the district? All that.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent Ebert, for the record. And twofold, I will say, just doubling down on what was said earlier, we had a lot of people return to the Clark County School District this last school year. So they were employees and now they've returned, including the person to my right, as well as myself. That being said, the funding that you all provided back during the pandemic, the teacher preparation program, has continued that pipeline, having our paraprofessionals being able to earn their college degree while they're working, so they don't have to quit their job. So right here within the Clark County School District, a lot of those vacancies were filled by those that went through the paraprofessional program, are being mentored by UNLV, and now are in our classrooms today. So just here in Southern Nevada, right? You hear me say it all the time, communities solve community problems, and that's what we're working on. A number of those, so now with the roughly under 300 vacancies that we have, almost half of those are in special education. And so we met with UNLV the other day of, we were able to reduce those numbers just the last few months by creating a special program, working collaboratively with UNLV. And so we are doing that again. We're running 2 more cohorts, trying to drive that special education number to 0. And so I hope you ask me the same question, before school starts this next year. But we really think through the 2 cohorts that we can spin up this spring And then also in summer that we'll be able to get closer to zero on that.
Well, thank you so much for that answer. The retention numbers are just extremely impressive, and I'm loving to hear that we're building our own, and that's something that we actually put in place is working. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question.
You are very welcome. We'll stay on Zoom. Senator Cannizzaro, did you have any questions for the Clark County School District?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, we will go up to Carson City then. Are there questions in Carson City? I'm not hearing anyone in Carson City, so we'll come back down to Las Vegas. This would be last call for any additional questions for the Clark County School District. You know, it's funny, I was thinking about the first time we had this meeting, we had all 17 all 17 school districts in front of us and charter school authority as well. And I think we started at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I think we went till, I'm looking over at Ms. Kaufman, we went very late into the evening on that Saturday. So I think we've come a long way, but you guys have also come a long way in terms of the kind of information that you present and the kind of things that you're telling us. So we appreciate that. And, you know, I just want to remind everyone as we wrap up that, you know, part of why we created the subcommittee was so that legislators could have dialogue directly with the school districts. The Department of Education is great here in Nevada, but it's the same as actually talking to the folks who are doing the day-to-day work in the school districts. And I certainly want to remind everybody that, you know, when we made these investments in education in the 2023 session, and we obviously built on those in some ways in the 2025 session, maybe not as much financially as we would like, but in terms of accountability and policy, that, you know, this is a work in progress. Things aren't going to turn overnight, and especially at the Clark County School District, we have the benefit of having a change in leadership and a new direction for the school district. And, you know, I think we are moving in the right direction. We looked at the numbers you presented today. They might not be dramatic improvements, but they're 10% improvements in test scores. And I think, you know, asking 10% improvement year over year over year is going to get us to where we want to be. But I certainly want to remind anyone who might be listening, this is not just going to, you know, just snap your fingers and turn things around. But I think we are moving in the right direction. I think that's a testament to you, Superintendent, and the team that you've built up around you. And maybe more importantly, the people who do the work day in and day out with their students in the schools. And so I just want to commend you for that. I had an opportunity, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, to go out to Don and D. Snyder Elementary School down in Assembly District 9, where they had the book bus that was giving books away to students, and happened to be there the day before Nevada Day, which was really cool because all the kids were dressed up in their best costumes. And, you know, to go out there and to see how excited the kids were to get books and to read, to see how excited the teachers were and the aides were, it just really made me feel hopeful. Now, some of that might have been just all the candy that had been eaten that day, because that has a way of impacting the students. But again, I would urge to anybody tuning in who hears all the gloom and doom about where our public schools are, to go out into those public schools, to volunteer, to see what's actually happening there, because the narrative has a way of getting out of control that somehow the situation is dire and you know, schools are terrible. It's not the truth. When you go out there and talk to the people, you'll see passionate individuals who love what they do. You'll see kids who are eager to learn. And so, you know, get out there and do that in the community if you haven't had a chance. And I look forward to hopefully doing that a little bit more than I've been able to do in the past. I loved being in the book bus and helping kids pick out their favorite books. I think I might have grabbed a couple for myself to read on the way. But that's just a long way of saying thank you for what you're doing. And we appreciate this is going to be a longer term investment, and we are 100% behind not just the Clark County School District, but all of our school districts here in the state, so we can continue to move in the right direction. So I think I've given a long enough monologue there that we can now let you go. But thank you so much for being here and for your presentation and for the slides today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, subcommittee members, that finishes up agenda item number 7. And we're now going to go to agenda item number 8, which is public comment. And just by way of reminder, if you are watching online and you want to participate in public comment via telephone, the way to do that would be to dial 888-475-4499. And when prompted for the meeting ID, you're going to enter 871-6532-4489, then press the pound sign. When prompted for a participant ID, you will press the pound sign as well. So on to public comment. Is there anyone in Las Vegas that would like to give public comment here this afternoon? I think all we have left are Clark County School District representatives, so I don't see anybody else here to give public comment. How about in Carson City? Is there anyone in Carson City who'd like to give public comment?
There is no one in the room, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Senator Titus. No public comment in Carson City. Let's go to the phone line and see if we have any public comment there.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but we have no callers.
Because people are probably at work. Hello?
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment. Before we adjourn, I did want to note there may have been some confusion about the Douglas County School District presentation. It is now online, uploaded to the legislature's website. So if you were trying to find that and you could not find that during the presentation, it is there now. You can go back and review, I think, 3 documents that they presented, their PowerPoint presentation and a couple other documents. So that is there. With that being said, subcommittee members, thank you for your time and attention this afternoon, and thank you to staff. And I wanted to wish a very, very happy birthday to our very own Wayne Thorley, who decided to celebrate his birthday down here in Las Vegas. I would ask folks to sing, but we really don't want to do that to the public. So maybe just sing in your heart to Wayne. So happy birthday, Wayne, and thank you for spending it with us. With that being said, I'm sure I will see you all very, very soon. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.